Dear participants, welcome to NRC, Dr. Harishankar University, Sagar, Madhya Pradesh. I am Shiv Shankar Jena, Assistant Professor in the Department of Sociology and Social Work, Dr. Harishankar University, Sagar. In this lectures, I will be discussing on the transformation of rural India from colonial period to till now. When you look at Indian societies from the perspective of sociological and anthropological discourse, we find rurality and rural India has a different civilizations containing different natures of social interactions and structural establishment, which is very different from the Western world. So, when you talks about rurality and rural India as a sociological categories to understand the structural transformations with cultural values transformations, then colonialism is an important discourse of analysis, because the historical roots of colonialism has a landmark in Indian sociological transformations with establishment of new values, new structural elements and new political economy in the history of Indian civilizations. So, when you talks about the colonialism, and colonialism has a very important place to be discussed in social science literatures, because look at the political philosophical legitimization of colonialism by the British political philosophers who served to India under East India Company for 35 years, J.S. Mills. He talks about on histories, and what he says, the historical transformation of any society is based on a civilizational transformations. And what do you mean by civilizations? From J.S. Mill perspective, civilizations having a scientific temperament, civilizations has a rules of order, and civilizations has a certain scientific technological development. And what J.S. Mill conceptualized about India, look at India. India doesn't have any scientific temperament, individual doesn't have any value rationalities, and individual doesn't have any kind of ways to development for a scientific civilizational progress. What J.S. Mill says, due to the despotic character of Indian princely states, Indian society has a stagnant societies, and that stagnant society should be broken. And who will break? That is the colonizers. They have the moral duty to transform Indian civilizations from a certain kind of religious traditional civilizations to a modern rational civilizations. Looking at J.S. Mill and what he legitimized about Indian under colonial rules, looking at this colonialisms, what Karl Marx says, it is also the rule of British on Indian society is an external interventions to create a certain kind of dialectical conflict within Indian societies through different modern capitalistic elements, through that individual society can move for an historical materialism. What does it mean, these things? The main important things what Karl Marx says in Asiatic mode of productions, it is a one kind of mode of productions where you can say it is a pre-capitalist society where there is no any kind of external or any kind of internal exploitations between have and have nots. In Asiatic mode of productions, what Karl Marx says, it is a community governed mode of productions where the means of productions may be dominated by despotic rulers or may be dominated by a certain kind of religious value systems. In this context, look at the Asiatic mode of productions within the context of Indian Jajmani systems where there is nothing have and have not relationships. There is a relationships. What M.N. Srinivas says in his structural functional perspective, that this Varna Vyavastha under the practice of caste systems have a both vertical and horizontal solidarities, and this vertical and horizontal solidarities creates a certain kind of a society where exploitations have no place, and through this process there is no conflict. And what Marx says, it is a stagnant society, doesn't have any historical preconditions for the development or creating a dialectical conflicts. Look at the role of colonialisms in India. It creates a certain kind of a dialectical material preconditions by transforming these Jajmani systems from a collective economic behaviors to a certain a class based economic behaviors. There are the two main important things. What J.S. Mill says, colonialism has a certain missionary power at a certain missionary attitudes to change the uncivilized societies like India, and this uncivilized society should be familiarized and socialized with the Western cultural value systems, and that is the moral duty of the Britishers to create a certain kind of civilizing orders from the perspective from family dimension to political systems. That is why J.S. Mill says the ruling of colonialism is creating a certain kind of a political democratic attitudes among the Indian societies, so that they can enjoy the liberty by socializing themselves with the Western democratic ideas. In this context, Marx says it is not a Western democratic ideas, but it is a colonialism. It is creating a certain kind of material preconditions to change the collective moral attitudes of Indian civilizations towards individualistic capitalist attitudes, which creates a certain kind of dialectical conflicts, and it may lead to a historical change. So, in this context, both are saying that India doesn't have a certain kind of historical maturity to create their own histories. That's why colonialism is there. Now, what happened? British started to govern India. It's starting from 1757, what is Battle of Plassey, and up to 1947. From 1757 to 1947, they have created a certain historical preconditions where Indian functionalistic attitude of social structures transforms into a conflicting category of social structures. Through the permanent settlement, they created a certain kind of new class order. What the anthropologist Daniel Turner says, that Indian society from a Brahman Vyavastha to transformed in an agrarian rural society where Malik, Mazdoor and Kishans become a new class categories. And why they created these new class categories? Because the motives of colonialism is different. Look at the development of industrial revolutions in Britain, and that industrial revolutions transforms into a capitalistic maturities, and when it transforms from a capitalistic maturities to a market orientations, they need a certain kind of market for their selling of the goods. That is the one kind of colonialism motivations. Now, another kind of colonialism motivation is they have to collect raw materials and they have to search for agrarian societies, because look at the transformations of British society from agricultural to industrial society due to the impact of industrial revolutions. That is why they tried to find a society where they can produce raw materials and they can find these raw materials at a cheap rate. So, there are two motivations by the Britishers to establish colonial rule in different countries like India and South Africa. There are different countries they have colonized. The first is producing raw materials, and second is searching for market to sell their products. So, producing raw materials means what? They started to create a certain kind of structural transformation in agrarian societies where the food crops transform to cash crops through raw material productions. And through this process, what they did, they tried to first destroy the collective structure of rural economy and tried to make a certain kind of class categories where the feudalistic populations instructed by the British governor that their kisans have to produce raw materials like jute, like indigo, and these are other raw materials, and we have a historical revolutions like indigo revolutions. So, there is transformations of agrarian society from food crops to cash crops. What happened then? The history of colonialism says there is a great famine, and that great famine was debated among the economists how this great famine, Bengal famine, happened. Now, economists like Amartya Sen says this great Bengal famine happened due to the rapid transformations of food crops to cash crops. Before Britishers, the Indian population was having more than enough per capita food grain consumptions, but when Britishers left, Indian populations died with hungry situations. That was the characters. And in these characters, what Adam Smith in his Wealth of Nations writes, before colonialism, India was the most wealthiest country of the world. And in sense, the Bengal was the most economically fertile regions of the world. That's why Britishers first targeted West Bengals to govern. And that West Bengals created a certain kind of historical transformations of their agrarian behaviors, and that created a certain kind of what you say Bengal famine. So in these connections, Indian society or Indian agrarian rural society started a certain kind of food insecurities. In this case, what I am trying to say you, before Britishers, Indian agrarian society was living in a food sovereignties. And what is this food sovereignties? That means the farmers, they were cultivating according to their need, their context of the environment. They have their own choice of cultivations according to the ecological settings. But what Britishers tried to did, they transformed this type of attitudes towards creating a raw material productions attitudes, and they imposed to produce according to their own need of the raw materials like jutes and indigos and tea plantations. And that's why there is a transformations of Indian society from a rich, wealthy agrarian society to a poverty-prone, hungry agrarian societies. That is one of the most kind of colonialism what they did to Indian societies. At the cost, what makes the profit for the Britishers? Look at, in the first case, they collected raw materials from the farmers at a cheap level. Look at, suppose I am giving an example. Suppose that British capitalist collected raw materials from a British farmers, for example 1000 rupees. They collected these raw materials from the Indian farmers at a cheaper stage like 200 rupees. There is an first in stage, there is an 800 profit. Now next, what happened? The final productions. Again, the clothes, when comes to British society to India, they sell it. If it is a cost of production is 1500, they sold it, it is a 2500. In this context, 1000 here, the first category 800. That means at a time they made a profit 800. That is called double profit for the Britishers and the double exploitation on the Indian populations. That makes the Indian populations as a poor, poverty-ridden populations, and the British society become more richer and more richer. What Marx says, it is a profit accumulations. And that profit accumulation in international order, India become a have-not groups and British becomes a have groups, and it creates a certain kind of a proletariat and bourgeois exploitation relationships. In this context, what happened? They introduced here the middle class like English educations, and through this English educations, they created a certain kind of class group in Indian society which is called as the English educated middle class. They also created a certain kind of mazdoor here in urban societies. That was the class development happened. And in this class development, what happened? There is a growing sense of nationalism also happened. That nationalism again created by the British educated Indian middle class populations, and they tried to define themselves, their own understanding of nationalism. In this context, what is their perception on rural societies? Because there is a British colonialism is here, how our leader perceives rural society, and after the movement, after the getting freedoms, what should be our rural societies. So within this colonial period, in late 19th century, there was a debate among our leaders like Gandhi, Ambedkar, Nehru on rural society and how to transform the rural societies. If you look at different perspectives, what Gandhi says about rural societies, it is everybody knows. The Gandhi says about rural society, it is something, a populations living with a moral civilization, having a collective happiness, and that collective happiness should be preserved. And that collective happiness is now rapidly declining due to the intervention of what J.S. Mill says, it is a scientific temperament introduced by the British civilization and creating a certain kind of profit-making individualism within our collective moral civilizations. That's why Gandhi was against modernity. That's why Gandhi was against technologies, because Gandhi was saying that technology creates a certain kind of what you imagined as a material progress, but technology won't give you happiness. Technology creates a certain kind of greedful individuals, and that rural society doesn't have these greedful individuals. That's why what Gandhi was saying, rural society is a social structure, it is based on a Hind Swaraj. This Hind Swaraj should be preserved, and this Hind Swaraj should be made isolated from the British civilizations. That's why Gandhi was trying to make an anti-colonial movement by creating an alternative civilization. That civilization is actually belongs to the Indian rural societies. In this context, what Ambedkar says? No, the rural society is based on a structural inequalities. That structural inequality should be abolished. When Gandhi was talking about rural societies based on collective moralities, Ambedkar was talking about rural societies based on structural inequality, in which a 5% population, they are enjoying everything, and more than 95% populations, they are marginalized through a cultural value established systems like called Varna to caste. And that Varna to caste created a certain kind of Indian society where major chunk of populations lives under the parameters of untouchability, and that untouchability kills the freedoms, human liberty within the rural society. Then Ambedkar says, if you want to look at the true freedom in Indian society, then you have to first structurally transform Indian rural society from a caste-less society to a modern-based democratic society. That's why Ambedkar was trying to destroy the rural societies and creating a new social order where caste is no place there. That's why Ambedkar has given so many ways to caste annihilations. That I am not going to the part. So the first is Gandhi was talking, it is a collective morality. Ambedkar is talking, it is a structural inequality. Then what Nehru says? Rural society is based on a traditional thought categories. Rural society is based on a traditional value systems. Rural society is based on irrational social structures. And for the progress of the nations, you need a certain kind of modernization path where the West is developed already. And through this modernization path, we should create a certain kind of a cultural structural transformation of rural society towards a modern society by establishing and by introducing material conditions for the westernization and modernization process. And what is this material conditions? We have to build up industries, and we have to build up dams, and we have to create a certain kind of modernization of Indian agricultures. Now look at what Nehru was saying. If you created a certain kind of material preconditions for the progress of the rural society, automatically the caste inequality will be dying. Why? Because if you create a certain kind of alternative civilizations, alternative economic categories, then there will be an alternative occupational categories. When it will be an alternative occupational categories, that means that alternative occupational categories may lead to a certain kind of declining of the caste system. So there are three perspectives on rural social structure. One is Gandhi talking about it should be preserved. Another, Ambedkar, who is talking about the total structural transformations and establishing of a society with destroying the Varna and caste systems. And what Nehru says, you need a certain kind of both cultural and structural change through material interventions. That was the definitions of the rural societies. Now what happened after the post-colonial periods? Now if you look at the rural society under the post-colonial development discourse, then what we found? In 1947, when British left India, India faced a major challenges that any country of the world history have never faced. Like British left us with 1% GDP, what Atul Kohli says in his book State and Poverty. Majority of the population was trapped by the cultural inequality like caste inequalities. Half of the population was living within four walls under the strongest patriarchal rules, and the partition of India and the migration with violence created communalisms where India was living in 1947 as a conflicting communal violence. There are the four major problems that India was facing in 1947. Then what we have to do for the progress? That means when Nehru was talking about we are going to adopt the democracy with development. That means the development is there, but you need the solution of these four major problems, and most of the 80% populations, those who are actually marginalized, we have to take into account of the nationalism process where they have to make active participation for the nation building process. So 1947 to 1990s, we have a path of development. That path faces so many modernizations process with so many contradictions. We went for land reform policies. We introduced community development programs, we introduced integrated rural development programs, then we introduced green revolutions. And what is this green revolutions? It made an again historical path, and this historical path, to understand this historical path and to understand the development process of rural societies and the new social stratification in rural societies, then there is an interventions by the economist, by the sociologist, by the anthropologist to understand what happened after green revolutions and what we achieved in green revolutions and what we created a new sociological discourse after the green revolutions. And there was a mode of production debate, and within this mode of production debate there was interventions by the follower of the semi-feudal groups of economists. They are the follower of the capitalist economist, and what they says, most of the economists like Amit Bhaduri, like Sumit Chandraj, what they says, they went for the field studies, they came with the data and they said कि after green revolutions still Indian society is based on semi-feudal systems, because now we are also having like a bonded labor, we are also having a debt farmers, we are also having a jatedari systems, so we are not marching towards the capitalist. Even though we introduced market oriented farming systems, even though introduced the cash crop in Indian societies, but we are not moving towards the capitalism. And another group says कि no, look at, there are also the transformation of rural agrarian societies. The farmers are moving from a traditional semi-feudal society to a modern capitalist society, because now the most category of capitalism is reintroduce of or reinvestment of the profit for the accumulation of profit. Now what Usha Patnaik says, he look at, now our farmers, the Indian farmers, marching towards capitalism because our farmers now started to reinvest the profit. The debate is something which an economist are debating. But if you look at from a social and rural development perspective, if you look at as a sociological perspective, what we says, the debate is nothing, it is a debate between tradition and modernities. That means our traditions is a dominating phenomenon in economic systems and in also the attitude of the farmers. At the same times, we are also changing the traditional farming into modernized through material interventions, using new technology, using new science policies, and also creating a certain kind of changing of production process. But at the certain times, we also deep rooted, our mind also deep rooted with a traditional based semi-feudal systems. So if you look at these things, the tradition and modernity is coexistence. Within this tradition and modernity coexistence, what we are finding, it is the Indian societies is based on a multiple discourse of the development. Why I am talking to the multiple discourse of development? Because it is created a certain kind of historical landmark in understanding the development policies in rural India. If you find in 80s, we will find so many movements, the growing consciousness from the subaltern groups, and subaltern studies emerge in Indian society, where most of the regional groups are making themselves consciousness, and they are making a movement in not only political spheres but also social spheres, like the Dalit literatures, like the feminist literatures, like the tribal literatures on their environment, Dalit narrations, and within these political systems, you will find the development of the regional parties. Now what you find, there is also impact of modernization policy in rural India. Through these modernization policies, the rural populations came into contact with the modern education system, and through modern education systems, they make conscious themselves, and now they are searching their historical truth with the negotiation of modern democratic process. And with this modern democratic process, there is what Javed Alam says, who wants democracy? What Javed Alam says, in Indian societies, the negotiations with modernization process is not individual negotiation, it is a group negotiations. How Dalit negotiate with modernity, how female negotiate with modernity, how farmers negotiate with modernity, how tribals negotiate with modernity, and that negotiations happened only the introduction of the modernizations. That means what I am trying to say you, like the introduction of the British educations in Indian societies in colonial period, that British education created a nationalistic consciousness, nationalism among our English educated middle class. Like this, the state policy of modernizations introduced by the post-colonial state also created a certain kind of rural consciousness, the rural population's consciousness, the group consciousness in Indian societies, and that group consciousness creates a certain space within the parameters of the democracy of India, and the development has created a different meaning to different population categories. Now, the tribals define development according to their own ecological, own cultural settings. Now, the Dalits define their development according to their own historical imaginations, historical narrations, own historical experience, and the contemporary negotiation with the broader social structure. Now, female negotiate their development according to their family existence and according to their rights and empowerment. Now, the environment also having a different notions under the discourse of development. So, in this sense, what I am trying to say, dear participants, look at, I was talking about the rural social transformations, not only as rural as it is, but how this rural has been imagined by our leaders, how rural has been looked at by the colonizers, and how rural has been transformed under the post-colonial development discourse, and agriculture is one of the unit of the rural social settings. Even now, if you look at the agriculture, it also comes under the political economic development discourse. Now, farmers are not only producers within their land, farmers are also becoming active political categories. Now, they are negotiating with the planning of the government. Now, they are demanding their own imaginations of farminghood in the context of the development policy of the state. Now, farmers becomes as a politically conscious groups for their existence within the society. In this context, the rurality has been changed. The concept of rurality in Gandhian traditions, like a moral development populations, is now transformed into a certain kind of rurality where the material conditions created a dialectical relations of rural population. They are captive by the traditional understanding with modern behaviors. In this context, what D.P. Mukherjee says, we are living in a dialectical material conditions, living a dialectical relation between tradition and modernity, and we are a society having a different discourse on development.